Imagine your favorite street food. Maybe it's a steaming bowl of spicy laksa, a smoky plate of Char Kway Teow, or perfectly charred sauté skewers. Now imagine the government launching a massive campaign to force it off the streets, sending inspectors to chase down the cooks and threatening to erase a century-old way of life. Sounds like a harsh crackdown, right? But this ruthless street food wipeout is actually the secret reason why Singapore has one of the greatest food scenes on earth. To understand how this happened, we have to go back to the 1960s. Singapore wasn't a shiny, futuristic metropolis yet. It was a crowded, chaotic island trying to figure out how to survive. And the streets were absolutely packed with unregulated hawkers. We were talking about over 18,000 people cooking food directly on the side of the road. It was the ultimate Wild West of capitalism. Anyone with a wooden cart, a wok, and a fire could start a business. But the reality was a living nightmare. You see, these makeshift carts didn't have running water. They didn't have refrigerators. They didn't even have trash cans. The cooks dumped leftover noodles, animal bones, and greasy dishwater straight into the open street drains. The smell in the tropical heat was unbearable. Rats and pests roamed the alleyways like they owned the place. Diseases like cholera and typhoid were basically waiting on the menu. The government had a massive problem. They desperately wanted to build a wealthy first-world city, but their streets looked and smelled like a toxic swamp. So, what do you do when your city is drowning in dirty food stalls? You can't just ban people from eating. But then, enter the Hawker Control Force. This was a special task force created for one specific mission: clear the illegal street food. It became a daily game of cat and mouse. Health inspectors would raid the streets in sudden sweeps. Hawkers would literally run away, pushing boiling pots of soup down narrow alleys to avoid getting caught, fined, and having their carts confiscated. It was total chaos. For the street vendors, taking away their food cart was like taking away their family's only survival ticket. The people were furious. Why destroy the only cheap food in the city? Why ruin the livelihoods of thousands of hardworking locals? It looked like the government was just crushing the little guy. But the leaders of Singapore had a hidden master plan, a plan so ambitious it just might work. They weren't actually trying to kill the street food. They were trying to capture it and clean it up. Think of it like this. Imagine you have a violently messy room. Instead of just throwing all your toys into the garbage, you build a massive, perfectly organized shelf system with custom spots for every single item. That is exactly what Singapore did. The government started spending millions to build giant open-air concrete buildings called hawker centers. They mapped out the entire island and strategically dropped these food fortresses right next to where people lived and worked. Then, they gave the illegal street hawkers an ultimatum and a lifeline. Come inside our clean new buildings, pay a tiny subsidized rent, use our clean running water, or face the police forever. At first, the cooks hated the idea. They thought the government was just trying to control them and steal their freedom. But then, a strange and magical thing happened. By forcing hundreds of different cooks into one giant room, it created an explosive food arena. It became a massive, high-speed battlefield of flavor. If your chicken rice wasn't the absolute best, the customer could just walk 10 feet to the next stall. You couldn't hide behind a dirty cart anymore. The competition became fierce. The quality of the food skyrocketed, while the prices stayed incredibly low. Instead of cooking in the gutter, these street chefs were now operating in clean, highly efficient mini culinary laboratories. That brutal cleanup didn't destroy the food culture. It forced it to evolve. Today, those same concrete hawker centers are famous around the world and recognized by UNESCO. Some stalls even have Michelin stars, serving some of the cheapest Michelin-starred meals in the world. The toxic swamps are gone, replaced by a trillion-dollar skyline. But the soul of the street food survived, trapped in the greatest, cleanest, and most delicious food system ever built. Singapore proved that sometimes, to save something beautiful, you have to completely tear down the world it lives in.